It's 9 a.m. and I would like to call to order the meeting of the Transportation Committee of June 26, 2025. Before we begin, please note that this meeting is recorded. Welcome to my colleagues and everyone joining here in person, as well as those listening on the phone. If you would like to provide public comment at today's meeting, and if you have not done so already, please let Thomas in the back of the room or Justine on the call-in line know what items you would like to speak on today. Madam Secretary, please begin by calling the roll.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. We're going to start with Director Hernandez, who's absent. Moulton Peters is absent. Parrish is absent. Rabbit is absent. Verdoni.
Present.
Here. Yes. Vice Chair Maston.
Here.
Chair Hill.
Here.
And President Cochran.
Here.
Thank you. That completes your quorum, but you are also a committee of the whole. In the room, we also have Directors Devlin, Garbarino, Giudice, Parr, and Snyder.
Gee, almost more than the members. Well, thank you. Please follow along by referring to the page numbers located on the bottom right-hand corner of the meeting packet. Madam Secretary, please introduce the first item.
First item is the district's advisory committees, the passenger advisory committees, and there is a very long report and a very, very, very big volume of attachments that we didn't include in the paper versions so that we could save a tree. But online, all the attachments are available, including the presentations that were done at the passenger advisory committee. So staff is available to answer any questions you have. We also have Ron Downing in the back of the room in the event you have any questions. Thank you.
Do we have any questions?
Yeah, I have a comment. During COVID, we were able to log into the advisory committee meetings and, listen to what was being said. And I know the rules have changed since then. But, looking at these minutes, some of them are months and months old and are somewhat irrelevant at this point. And, I'd like to see if we can maybe rethink how we're doing this to be a little more timely with the information, or, at least put it back on us to be able to log in to at least listen to the advisory committee meetings.
Thank you. We'll come back in the next month or two with some recommendations along the lines that you've suggested. There was a state law that would have allowed the members of the committees to participate remotely. That failed, but that doesn't mean we couldn't have access for people to listen into the meetings. So we'll take that suggestion along with your other thoughts and come back in the next month or two with some ideas on how to do that better.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing we can think about is because some of the advisory committees don't have a quorum to meet, and that's why they get canceled at the last minute. But what we could do is we can continue to at least, if transportation is canceled, we can send out the materials along with it in the event it's past them.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
That way they're a little more timely.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Oh, excuse me. Are there any others? None. That concludes discussion on this item. Madam Secretary, is there anyone from the public who should be speaking?
We have no speakers for this item.
Thank you. No action is required for item number 3. We'll move on to item 4, which is to authorize the setting of a public hearing on proposed changes in Golden Gate Transit bus routes as identified in the Marin Sonoma Coordinated Transit Service mascots plan. The staff report begins on page 169, and Director of Planning, Ron Downing, is here to present the report. Ron, please begin the report.
Good morning, Chair Hill, members of the committee. The action before you is to set a public hearing to consider the recommended service change proposals under mascots. But before I get to that actual item in the staff report, I'd like to go through a brief PowerPoint presentation that's going to go to all of the boards on this slide. This is a collaborative effort amongst all of the transportation funding agencies and operating agencies in Marin and Sonoma. Metropolitan Transportation Commission has also participated in these meetings. It's been collaborative both at the general manager, executive director level, as well as at the staff level, the people that actually put the service on the streets. So mascots is the Marin and Sonoma Coordinated Transit Service Plan. I think I just described mascots. The process, as I said, has been very collaborative in terms of looking at existing conditions. One of the major tenets of this study has been how to look at the service in the North Bay as if it were one operator. Right now, there's a lot of duplicate and overlapping service, which contributes to low patronage on some segments. There is a lot of service that goes between, say, San Rafael and Marin City, for example. There are 6 different routes that go between those 2 points. It can be very confusing for the public to understand which route they need to take. So one of the real cornerstones of this study has been to untangle that spaghetti, make efficient use of our resources, especially as we're spending toll dollars that are intended to take people across the Golden Gate Bridge, and to use all of the transportation dollars that come to the North Bay in a more effective way. As I said, the existing conditions drilled down on all of the service, bus and rail in the North Bay, and made recommendations moving forward for consideration. In parallel with that, it's important to note that mascots, what's coming forward today, reinforces the strategic plan adopted by this board last year. And again, matching bus and ferry service with customer demand. Everything has changed post-pandemic, as you know. Work with the different partner agencies in the Highway 101 corridor to optimize and minimize duplicative service, and to support the region's network management goals coming out of MTC, which this effort is kind of the model for future efforts throughout the Bay region moving forward. The next set of slides is going to be the recommendations coming forward, and then I'll drill down into next steps. So again, the goal is to grow ridership, develop a plan, look at this if it's one agency working collaboratively as opposed to 5 or 6 different agencies, each with their own mission. So this effort has been underway for about a year, and there's been a lot of research in terms of what ridership looks like, what current conditions are, developing solutions to address opportunities to make the system better. Right now, we are just concluding documentation of what the impacts would be to making service changes in the North Bay area. And then we'll be embarking on a public outreach effort to inform the public of the proposed changes. For this agency, the final adoption would come after a public hearing in August. So based on comments received through the summer, and at that public hearing, we would come back in September with a final recommendation for the board. It's anticipated that the service package could be implemented in early 2026. I would say maybe in the first third of 2026 would be optimistic at this point. So one of the real areas that's emerged is that the SMART train has replaced Golden Gate Transit Route 101 as the mode of choice for Sonoma to Marin trips. SMART carries several times over the number of passengers from Sonoma down to San Rafael and to the ferry than we do on the buses. Highway 101 in southern Marin is overserved. As I said, there's 6 different routes. Too many routes carrying too few passengers is really inefficient, and the public can be confused as to which bus they should be taking, which bus is the fastest, which bus takes you all through southwestern Marin County before getting to Marin City. 70% of the Marin-Sonoma travel to San Francisco in the whole corridor originates in San Rafael South. That's a very important finding in terms of where we should be spending our transit resources. And again, in the background of our service is the consultant has found that there are need for better cross-county connections feeding into the SMART train, especially up in Sonoma County. So I've already covered this, reduced duplication. Instead of having 3, 4, 5, 6 different routes, there would be one option that comes more frequently than a large number of routes that come less frequently, improving the connections, match service to demand, redirect resources where ridership growth and potential is the highest, reduce or remove service on low ridership routes and alignments. So again, the recommendation is to rationalize SMART and Golden Gate Transit service in the corridor, particularly with regard to Route 101. The recommendation is to truncate Route 101 in Novato and increase the frequency of service between San Rafael and San Francisco. Route 101 has been our signature route for many, many years. We did not anticipate at the outset of SMART that the impact would be so significant in terms of shifting ridership. Route 101 does extremely well from San Rafael south. One of the tenets of this is to try to make better connections with the SMART train in San Rafael. Currently, Route 101 is once an hour. The SMART train is every 32 to 64 minutes during the day. That's a little bit difficult to match up with to begin with. However, we feel that a 15-minute frequency from San Rafael south would allow for those better connections with the train. SMART, their recommendation is to increase their frequency and increase the span of service, so the trains would be running earlier in the morning, later at night, to replace the bus service during those hours when there's still a passenger demand for transit service. We would maintain Route 101 from Novato south at its present frequencies of every 60 minutes all day, every 30 minutes during the peak hours. The added service would be from San Rafael south. Southern Marin bus service is where there's a real spaghetti of services. And as I said, Route 101 would be increased between San Rafael and San Francisco. We have a basic Route 30 that runs 7 days a week from San Rafael, stops at all the freeway bus pads, stops in Marin City, and then travels through Sausalito. That's once an hour. In parallel with that, we have a Route 150 that runs once an hour, again, leaving San Rafael, serving all the freeway bus pads, going into San Francisco over the Waldo Grade and across the bridge. Both of those routes are extremely unproductive at the freeway bus pads in Marin. Staff has looked into the recommendations of the consultant and done a deeper dive with ridership counts, automatic passenger counts, and found that some of these trips are carrying across all 4 freeway bus pads in southern Marin 1 passenger going to San Francisco, or 0 passengers going to San Francisco. So the recommendation is for those passengers to use Marin Transit service at the freeway bus pads and to take a more robust Route 130 from Marin City into San Francisco. Route 150, the consultant concluded that the ridership is so low that we should just reinvest those resources in Route 101 where there's better ridership potential. So there's service options for all of the riders at the freeway bus pads. The majority of those riders going to San Francisco are actually during peak periods. And so they could take commute service into the financial district that would still give them a 1-seat ride. It's when the ridership is very low in those off-peak periods that a transfer in Marin City would be warranted for those riders to get to San Francisco. On the Marin Transit side, the recommendation, as I said, is to consolidate several of their routes into one route that would run every 15 minutes, serving all those freeway bus pads, providing high-frequency connections between San Rafael and Marin City. And again, for passengers leaving San Rafael, the preferred route is the Route 101, not the Route 130, nor the Route 150. So we would beef up that service to make it more attractive to the passengers and reflect the greater ridership potential. Again, all of the local operators in Marin and Sonoma, it's recommended that they improve their connections to SMART. I'm not going to dwell into that in a lot of detail today because that's outside of our purview. Consultant has also recommended that we simplify our commute service from Sonoma County to San Francisco. We had implemented a route from East Petaluma called Route 164 that simply didn't attract enough riders. The ridership has been below standard. The recommendation is to combine that route into 172 so that there'll be one route coming down from Santa Rosa, Rohnert Park, Petaluma, and into the financial district. The new combined route could use the new HOV lanes that are going to be opening in the Narrows, and the consultant recommendation is that this one route not make local pickups in San Francisco. Route 580 is our Richmond Bridge bus. The consultant has estimated that we could save 9 minutes by operating that route within Marin on the I-580 freeway instead of on East Sir Francis Drake. Very few passengers use that local segment on East Sir Francis Drake, and nearly all of them could take Marin Transit as an alternate service. We would continue to have an express version of Route 580. The only difference between the 580 and the 580X would be that it would continue to bypass the stop in Point Richmond, which is really cumbersome in the morning peak because of traffic backup getting to the Richmond Bridge. So a quick summary of the recommendations. Truncate Route 101 in Novato, but beef up the frequency between San Rafael and San Francisco. Improve SMART's frequency and operate trains earlier in the morning and later in the day. Streamline Southern Marin bus service. Improve local connections to SMART. Streamline our commute routes in Sonoma from 2 routes to 1. And improve travel time on the Route 580 going across the Richmond Bridge. So the alternate service structure recommended under Mascots is that SMART becomes the primary Sonoma Marin regional service provider. We provide all-day direct express service from key hubs in Marin County to San Francisco, especially improving that connection with the SMART train in San Rafael. Peak period commute bus services from Sonoma and Marin would continue direct to San Francisco. There are no specific recommendations for our commute routes from Marin to San Francisco. The consultant did note that the Golden Gate Ferry, which is not being taken apart in any way under this service plan, provides really strong connections to and from SMART and connects Central Marin in a very robust way to San Francisco. Again, references to the local transit operators about connections to SMART and local travel along the Highway 101 corridor would continue to be provided by Marin Transit. So the riders would benefit by fewer lines on the map, easier to understand route numbers, more consistency in what those routes do. Frequency would improve in key corridors, and that greater frequency would improve transfer connections to all service providers, particularly for the SMART train in San Francisco. Better regional connections, the SMART line, more frequent service connecting San Rafael to San Francisco, and faster service to the East Bay. The consultant is projecting increasing ridership as a result of these changes, about 8 to 15%, depending on where in the network it would occur. Again, as I've said, a cornerstone is to reinvest service hours where higher demand exists compared to sections that are not productive right now, and make the existing resources more efficient. As this is all proposed, it's service hours neutral. Now, what does that mean? That means the amount of service hours we are spending today would be the same under the proposal. So it would not require any new resources to make this all possible. We wouldn't need service hours. We wouldn't need equipment. The one thing that we are aware of is that we're going to have to educate riders as to what these new service options are. So in summary, the timeline is to do public outreach between now and August. Our public hearing is proposed for August, and then Marin Transit would follow with a public hearing in September. Sometime this fall, all the different agency boards would finalize the changes that I've just outlined. Not all of the boards need to have board action to do what they're going to do. It's anticipated, as I said, that this would be implemented during the first half of 2026, and it's envisioned as a 3-year pilot to see how it works, make some adjustments if necessary, and to do an evaluation after 2 years. So a couple things here that I want to distinguish, first of all, is there would be a public outreach under the Mascots banner between all the public participating agencies to the public to educate them on the proposed service changes. And MTC has a different consultant identified to work with agency staff, including our director of marketing, to develop this plan. We believe it's going to include some surveys of customers, some pop-up events at places like the Transit Center in Santa Fe and Marin City, and some virtual meetings online for people to log into and find out about these changes. This is a separate process from the outreach that we would do to publicize our public hearing in August. So there's two things in parallel. There's a bit of overlap. We have to follow our own process for a major service change, which is going to be different from what all of the other participating agencies would be doing. So that's the conclusion of the presentation. Do you want to pause here and see if there's any questions?
If I could jump in. So the item before you is to ask permission to talk to the public about this. That's all we're here to discuss today. Okay. So we're asking that you set a public hearing. That's what the action is. And to talk to the public. If the board were to take any actions, as Ron said, it would not be until the fall after we hear from the public and after we respond to all those public comments in detail and after we do a Title VI equity analysis to see how this might impact different communities in our service area. So I just want to clarify, if this is implemented, it's a big change. The total number of bus hours that we operate today is the same as what's going to be operated afterwards. Just to be clear, we're not cutting, the number of bus hours that we have out there as part of this proposal. What we are doing, though, is redirecting those to where the customers are, doing that in concert with SMART, Marin Transit, and the Sonoma County operators. And so staff respectfully requests that you allow us to talk to the public and you approve the item before you set a public hearing.
You need a motion for that?
Question.
Excuse me. That concludes discussion on item number 4. Before we take our vote, thank you, Ron. Presentation. Are there any questions or comments on item 4? And I'd just like to make a comment. It's really good if you can combine these two together all in advertising so they don't understand the same thing.
Holly, question.
Pardon me?
Holly.
Oh, Holly?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So I had a couple questions. I did not see the ridership numbers included in the packet for any of the routes. Do you have that you can provide?
We have that.
Okay, I would love to see that. Also, were there any letters received from the public so far on this? Or?
This is the start of the public process, so the public hasn't seen this. So
no, I understand.
We anticipate getting a lot of letters, emails, and comments in the coming months. But at this juncture, we have not received any public comments that I've seen. Okay.
And another question is, what alternatives did the consultant look at for the 101? And the reason I'm asking is that, that is our signature bus that provides service from San Francisco through Marin and Sonoma counties. And were there alternatives looked at, such as possibly, coordinating the schedules with SMART, but still allowing to keep the service?
We went through several iterations of that. One of the challenges in Sonoma County is the bus doesn't go to the same places that the train does. In order to have a bus go to those train stations, it would significantly increase the travel time. What we didn't want was at 2:30 in the afternoon, you would go to a train station. At 3:30 in the afternoon, you would go someplace else across town to get to a bus stop. So again, in the spirit of making it simple for the customer to understand, the ultimate recommendation was to enhance the train service.
Coupled with having local bus service serve the train station so people can get to the train stations.
Okay. And then the next question is, the bus service would then be provided by SMART. Is that correct?
No. SMART is not providing any bus service. SMART is only providing train service.
No, I didn't mean that. And what the question I had, sorry, I had food poisoning for about 7 days. So who is providing the bus service that would be replacing the 101? Is it just?
No bus service would replace the 101. There'd be enhanced, much more frequent bus service in Marin County, and traveling between Marin and Sonoma, the bus service would be replaced by people taking the train instead of the bus.
No, that's not what I'm asking. You mentioned shuttle service
The
to
local,
get people
the
to
local
the stuff.
bus
So who would
operators,
be doing that?
the local bus operators, that's Santa Rosa City Bus, Sonoma County Transit, Petaluma Transit, and Marin Transit. So they would better serve the regional operators in Sonoma County focused on SMART. When Ron had the slide up, he showed a Sonoma County Route 20 bus that they recently made that change already. They're looking at making more changes so that people can get more easily to the SMART stations from other locations in the counties.
Okay, and can you also provide the alternatives that were looked at to the board at the appropriate point? I know that this is to set the public hearing, but I'm interested in the alternatives to truncating service on the 101.
We'll certainly put together a package of information for you per your request, including the alternatives looked at and the current ridership on some of the routes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mr. Masson.
Yeah. Hard not to have a lot of questions. I'll try and keep them short. So is this an outgrowth or replacement of was it MTC, greater integration of Bay Area?
They're pleased that we're all doing this. MTC, in the darkest days of the pandemic, created a Blue Ribbon Transit Recovery Task Force. And the district participated in that process. It was chaired by then MTC Commissioner Jim Spearing. This is aligned with that. It's certainly aligned with, I think, the expectations of the public. It's good government for agencies to sit down periodically to say, are we using our resources in the best possible way to serve the public who's paying these services? And so, but the agencies got together really through our strategic plan efforts. Our strategic planning efforts kind of got everyone together. It's important to note that the world has changed. SMART opened their extension to Larkspur, and then 2 months later, the pandemic hit. So we had plans that we want to revisit things anyway, but then we went through the pandemic, we're out of the pandemic, and travel patterns are different now. People have adjusted, and so this effort is consistent with the fact that the world has changed. It's consistent with your strategic plan, and it is consistent with MTC's Blue Ribbon Transit Recovery Task Force goals. There is a state legislator who has advocated for combining all Bay Area transit agencies. The fact that we're doing this effort collectively shows that perhaps at least in the North Bay that effort may not be necessary. That legislature proposed that a year ago. It did not make that the legislature. More recently, she proposed that the state auditor look at all the operators in Alameda and Contra Costa counties to look at how they could be combined or do service differently. Are they efficient or not? And so I would argue that doing this as opposed to waiting for a legislator to have the state auditor do it to us is probably a prudent move, as well as being in the best interest of our ratepayers.
So another question. Thank you, Dennis. I'm familiar with the word truncate, but in this case, what exactly do you mean?
It means the bus would end in Novato going north.
Would end at a Novato bus yard.
However, you did mention that there would be buses coming from select places, commute buses coming from select places in Sonoma County, correct?
That's correct.
And what places would those be?
Santa Rosa, Rohnert Park, and Petaluma, just as we have today.
So just, okay.
The only difference is right now we have 2 routes going through Petaluma. One of them is not productive, and so those trips would be folded into the existing Route 172 that starts Santa Rosa, comes down through Rohnert Park. On most trips, travels through Petaluma and then to the financial district.
So the goal is to streamline it so it's one line on the map, not multiple lines. And the goal is to make it such that the bus isn't slower than it is today. In fact, because some of the buses will travel a little extra distance, but they'll have the narrows to help them. The recommendation is that route does not pick up in San Francisco, which adds a little bit of time. And so that's what the recommendation is. The public may not like that recommendation when we talk to them, but we're excited to show them what the options are that we have in front of us to see what they think about it.
So by commute, then, do you mean there would be buses running from Santa Rosa to San Francisco in the morning and in the evening?
Correct.
Not
In the morning southbound and in the evening northbound.
Okay. Do we know how many, you talked about the 70-30 split between riders between Sonoma County and getting on in Sangerville. Do we know what that split was pre-COVID?
We don't have that in front of us, but we can certainly see if we have access to that information.
More of a fun fact at the moment. Don't,
and the important
don't expend a whole lot of
okay.
effort.
70% is San Rafael South. Another 17% is from San Rafael to Nevada. So that gets you to 87%. So this is total, whether it's driving, taking a bike, taking a bus, taking a boat or train. This is total, travel between Marin and Sonoma and San Francisco. So by far the largest share is from Marin South, which is kind of logical. But that's why the recommendation is we focus resources there because they're toll funded. And people have spoken with their feet. People are choosing the train in lieu of the 101 because quite frankly, it's faster and cheaper.
So one last question. Currently, SMART does not charge for senior and youth, I believe.
Correct.
What if that changes? And
I think the travel time will still be in SMART's favor.
And passengers,
Yes.
ridership. Well, more to follow. Thank you.
Okay.
This is just the start.
Do we have any others? Go ahead. Mr. Carter.
Thank you. So am I to understand that we'll hold financial questions until fall?
That's correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
thanks. I do want to point out to the board, though, that during the Mascot study, that our ferries were not designated as regional transportation, which is really unfortunate, and that should be corrected. And I would look to my friends on the SMART board to advocate for that as well.
So what he's referring to is with respect to Sonoma County Transit funding. Money goes to the county's STA and TDA funds. They don't recognize our ferry providing a benefit to Sonoma County. But the consultant did look at our ferry service, but their finding was that they didn't have any recommended changes there. One of the things that will come out of this is some people complain about the transfer between the train in Larkspur and the ferry. If we had 15-minute frequency on buses that are express from the San Rafael Transit Center to San Francisco, every 15 minutes it'll make that transfer a lot easier for folks to get into San Francisco.
This is not.
So you were saying, Dennis, that the amount of bus hours is going to remain unchanged?
It's about the same. Yeah, that was the goal of the study. Is we don't want to invest more resources. So the question is, can we reallocate resources?
I guess what baseline are you using if it's not pre-COVID?
No, we're using current. We're using today. I mean, pre-COVID had a lot more travel in the quarter by bridge, bus, and ferry. And so we look at where things are today. Anytime you do a service change, it's not forever. This one we recognize should be a pilot. And so it's proposed that after 2 years we revisit it, give it a chance to settle down and see if we need to make any changes or not. And if necessary, say, no, that didn't work, let's do something different, assuming this is what's implemented. After public outreach, we may have something radically different that gets, shaped. But this is just a current proposal to start the conversation with the public, saying if this was all operated by one entity, here's what we think it might look like. What do you think?
I mean, is there a possibility that we expand routes? If it goes back to what it was pre-COVID?
My line is we continue to add back transit service, bus and ferry in an incremental fashion as we see a return of travelers to the corridor. Today, bridge traffic southbound during the morning commute, 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. is down 25% compared to pre-pandemic. Bus is down the most and ferry's down a fair amount. So travel's slowly coming back. It's trending in the right direction. We have been adding service since the darkest days of the pandemic. We tried things and we'll keep doing that as we go forward. So it's our goal to continue to add back services. We see a return of customers. I dare say we want to see a few more drivers so we can afford to add back that service. Because, you're about to adopt a deficit budget or recommend a deficit budget later this afternoon to the board for tomorrow.
Dr. Park.
No, I withdraw my question.
Okay.
I had one left.
Let's see. Polly?
Thank you so much, Chair. I had one last comment or question. I'm hopeful with the 101 route that the alternatives can also be presented to the public when the public outreach is done. I think that would give us a great overview of what the public really thinks. And, if we just present one alternative, which is truncating the service, I think that's not, may not be as beneficial in order to get the feedback from the public. I'd like to see all the alternatives go to the public.
It'll be joint outreach. So when we have outreach, it'll be Golden Gate staff, Smart staff, Marin Transit staff, Santa Rosa City Bus staff, all together in the room, talking about the totality of the proposal and getting feedback on the totality of the proposal, because it doesn't work if you look at just one piece. That having been said, our process for our change requires that we set a public hearing. So we're asking that you set that public hearing, but the totality of the outreach will start if you agree to set the public hearing. And MCC, as Ron said, has a consultant, and Dana Failer of our staff is leading the effort among all the agencies. And so we will have robust outreach that has all the agencies together talking about the totality of the changes and asking the public, what do you think? Does it make sense? Does it not? How does it impact you? And so we look forward to having those conversations.
Okay, but they will include alternatives that are not just truncating the service in Nevada.
No, our proposal is, what has been put forth today is what we'd share with the public, and then they would give us comments. They'd say, don't truncate it in Nevada, or they'd say for something else. But we have to have a straw proposal to put out there, and that's what this would be.
Okay, and I guess all I'm saying is that I would prefer if all the alternatives were included. I like the proposals for the most part. I am concerned about taking away our signature service and possibly providing lesser service in Marin and Sonoma counties that the one previously provided. So that's my major concern. And also it's, very difficult, I think, for riders with lesser abilities to switch modes of transportation. And that would affect, several of our riders. So
Certainly.
Director Maston.
What effect, if any, will these changes have on our need for bus drivers?
We think it'll be relatively neutral because it's the same number of hours of driving a bus. We would take the hours of the 101 in Sonoma County and we direct those into much more frequent 101 service from, in Marin County. We would take the 150 hours and make the 130 more frequent, so it'd be every half hour. So it redirects resources, we believe, in a more efficient way that's responsive to, where customer demand is.
And one last comment. All of our riders in Mendocino County who go to Santa Rosa or go to San Francisco would have to change twice. Mendocino Transit, then Smart, and now on the 101 instead of catching 101 in Santa Rosa. But not a huge demographic, but
an important demographic.
Any questions by directors? I'd like to comment. I hope that all of these buses have bike racks on them for the last mile, because we're not going to go right through the door.
The answer is yes.
Okay.
So the item that's before you is to consider setting a public hearing for Thursday, August 21st at 9:00 in the morning on everything that we've just gone over.
Okay, with that conclusion, I would like to ask if there's any public speakers.
We do. We have Shane Weinstein who would like to speak today. Shane, why don't you join us at the end of the table there? There you go.
Good morning. Shane Weinstein, president of ATU 1575. Just a couple things. Smart Ridership, 2024 fiscal year, March. This is pre-free ride, 60,000 riders. Okay. Post-free rides 1 year later in March, fiscal year 25, 108,000 riders. So almost double the boardings, 50% when they changed to free rides. I just wanted to get that out there. Director Maston asked, those are going to be commute hours with the commute service on the 172, so that's going to happen during a very select, I don't know what those hours are, but I think they're probably like 5 to 7:30.
In that ballpark.
And then, so there'll be a couple buses in the morning, a couple buses in the evening. Well, there'll be more than that. I didn't mean to say a couple, but they will be for like a couple hours is what I meant.
About every 30 minutes.
Right. So I just wanted to kind of give you a different perspective really quick. Mascots, the draft plan as it's currently written kind of fails the riders that we're supposed to be serving. The proposal doesn't really shift service. It puts up barriers. It creates more transfers. It creates more confusion, more walking for people who are least able to afford it literally and figuratively. So to be specific, the proposal to eliminate Golden Gate Transit Route 101 north of Nevada will force riders in Santa Rosa, Roanoke Park, Cotati, and Petaluma to rely solely on SMART. That might look good on a spreadsheet, but the reality is that SMART stations in these cities are often up to a mile or more away from where people actually live and work. For our transit-dependent riders, many of whom are low income or elderly, that is not an inconvenience. It is a barrier to mobility. Second, the late-night riders are left completely behind. SMART service ends at roughly 10 or 10:15. Okay, I don't know what time it is going to be exactly. And if the Golden Gate Transit 101 is gone, there is literally no transit north after 10 o'clock at night from Marin to Sonoma. None. You must take your feet. You must take an Uber. You must take a Lyft. There is no public transit. We are deserting people after 10 o'clock. This is not acceptable. We're failing the disabled passengers. So when you eliminate the Route 101, the district will no longer be required to provide inter-county ADA paratransit north of Nevada. SMART and commuter buses are not subject to the same requirement. And so that means disabled riders face fragmented service, long delays, and physical transfers that they may not be able to make. Finally, the Route 130. 130 is being truncated at Marin City. Route 150 is being canceled. Riders from Tam Junction, Mill Valley, and beyond will have to transfer not once but twice to reach San Francisco. This adds walking, waiting, confusion, and it undermines the ridership just as we're trying to bring it back. All this lies in the face of the district's mission to reduce traffic on the 101. With the opening of the Petaluma Narrows, this is the exact time to be investing in faster, more robust, one-seat regional bus service, not gutting it. I just had a meeting with Ron a couple days ago. We came to the conclusion that we're looking at about 10 to 15 minutes that we're going to be saving. I think that's what we talked about with David Davenport, 10 to 15 minutes. When those Petaluma Narrows open, we're now going to make people get off and transfer all over the place just to get to San Francisco. When those Petaluma Narrows open, that 101 is going to be faster than any SMART train. We only got to make up 10 or 15 minutes. And everybody wants to keep their booty in the seat the whole time. They don't want to have to get off. They don't want to have to walk. They don't want to have to transfer. They don't want to have to pay more when SMART isn't free anymore. So I urge you to reconsider the recommendations, engage those that are most affected by this, the operators who drive the routes and the riders who rely on them. SMART is not ready for this. We're doing this way too early. They do not have the infrastructure right now. They do not have the operators, the engineers. They are not ready. This will not be going in until August, I would assume, at the earliest. So, and I want to hit one more thing, is that net neutral service, I understand. I'm not advocating for people to not lose their jobs. That's not what I'm here for. But what we are doing for the first time in history of the Golden Gate Bridge is we are deserting people. We can't do that. It doesn't matter how many people ride the bus at 10:30, 11:30, or 12:30 at night. Those people need that bus. They are not a business decision. They need that bus. Okay? The numbers we're looking at, it may be 16. These are the numbers that I got from Ron. 16 maybe at night, that'll be on average. So are we 16 to 20? That's the paying people. Those aren't the people that just walk by and disrespect bus operators and don't pay. We may be talking about 40 people a night. We're not going to give them service. I hope that we can really reconsider this. I really think we need to look. If SMART is going to end, you have to give people the ability to use public transit to get where they're going. Petaluma Transit is going to be closed down. I'm a president up there too. They're not going to be providing service. Can't get to Petaluma. Can't get to Roanoke Park. Get them to Santa Rosa. That's where we belong. Thank you very much. I didn't know that I had some time, Burton. You know what? I didn't know it was public comment, but I appreciate you, and I'll be quiet now. So thank you for listening. I appreciate it. I will speak with anybody if they'd like to conversate further on this.
Thank you. Staff recommends that you move the recommendation so we can hear from other people, our customers, bus operators, and anyone else through this public process. So we strongly encourage you to approve the item before you start the conversation with the public.
Check online to see if there's any additional speakers. A bunch of people did join the line during the presentation, so I'm going to flip things over to Justine. Justine, would you like to pull your public line to see if there's any public speakers on your line?
Certainly, will do. Good morning, everybody. If you'd like to speak this morning, please use ** to unmute yourself and give me your name so we can go in order. Please press ** to unmute yourself and let me know. Again, if you'd like to speak today on this item or any item on transportation, please press ** to unmute yourself and let me know. I am not hearing anybody at this time.
All right, thank you for monitoring the line. Let us know if you hear anything.
Yes, thank you.
Certainly, thank you.
May I have a motion on agenda number 4?
So moved. Second.
It's just about to say something.
Give it to Jim.
Got it.
Okay. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposition?
Would you tell me the date again? What's the date again of the hearing?
Thursday,
August 21st.
August 21st.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll send the board also information on all the outreach once it starts rolling out, so you'll have the dates of all those so that if you want to participate and listen, you can.
Just a request, if the consultant was tasked with looking at any negative impacts from this change, if they could be shared with us, that would be nice too.
Agreed. So we will do that. We'll share the pros and cons of the recommended alternative.
Okay. Is there any opposition? Seeing none, let the record show there's no opposition and the motion passes. We will now move on to item number 5, which is the monthly traffic, transit ridership trends, and transit service performance. The staff report begins on page 197. Dennis, go ahead.
Yeah, I read reports before you. Just to highlight, I said it earlier during the morning commute, bridge traffic is down 25%. Overall bridge traffic for the month is down about 15% compared to pre-pandemic. Just to remind you, bridge traffic is how we pay our bills. So we have less people crossing the bridge today than we did before the pandemic, so we have less money available to us. Fortunately, though, travel is starting to trend upward, and we see continued growth. Ferry ridership is only down about 33% compared to pre-pandemic. And I should note that we had 2 back-to-back Tuesdays of last week and the prior week where the 755 ferry boat sold out. So one trip carried almost as many passengers as all of our commute buses crossing the bridge during the entire morning commute. And that was just one trip. On the bus side, we're down about 51% last month compared to pre-pandemic. The good news, though, is we're seeing slow, steady growth. And as a fun of saying, we'll continue to add back bus and ferry service incrementally as we see a return in demand for our services. With that, I'm available to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none?
Is there any?
Sorry, I didn't see you.
That's okay. That's okay. Lou, I'm here. Is there anything you think that we can do as a district to increase ridership?
Our success is tied to the success of downtown San Francisco. If people want to go downtown, we have customers. Because, everyone that goes from Marina Sonoma to San Francisco is our customer unless they're swimming across. There's our bridge, our bus, our boat, they're riding a bike, taking a car. So, we have that market. And as downtown San Francisco recovers, we'll see continued growth. Downtown San Francisco still has a 37% office vacancy rate. That means there's no one that's leased the space. The space that has leases oftentimes doesn't have people that are coming in still. But we're seeing a slow, steady return of some tourism. The election may have hurt that a little bit, to be blunt. We're also seeing a slow, steady rebound in downtown San Francisco as some buildings through basically bank sales are, entering new hands. But so right now, the amount of unleased office space in downtown San Francisco is equal to 20 Salesforce transit centers. Salesforce towers. So you picture that big tower, 20 of those, that's how much vacant office space, unleased, there is today. So what we can do is we can assist San Francisco in regrowing tourism and reinvigorating downtown San Francisco, because we can't force people to go to San Francisco. They want to go. Certainly people are willing to go into San Francisco for recreational purposes when there's special events. Our Giants ballpark ferries are commonly selling out. Last season, our Giants ballpark ferry was the highest ridership in any year since 2015. And as we all know, last year the Giants didn't help. What we can do is we can assist others in marketing San Francisco and in helping the city reopen downtown.
Dennis, thank you for your part. Are there any questions or comments from directors? Yes, Mr. Vasson.
Yeah, thank you. I just noticed on page 200, ferry fare box recovery for like 11% last month, whereas we carried more passengers than in 2023. Fare box recovery was twice that much. What's the difference?
A couple of things. We have some fixed costs. We also have some one-time expenditures where we have, boats that lost an engine, or we had to do some emergency repairs at ferry facilities, so our costs increased. And so we have aging facilities, and so we've had some cost increases that hit that. It's important to note, before the pandemic, our ferry fare box recovery was over 50%. We're offering less service today, so our fixed costs on both bus and ferry are spread out over fewer hours of service. So it makes our cost per hour of service look pretty high. But so before the pandemic, the average toll subsidy for a ferry passenger was significantly less than a bus passenger. A bus passenger toll subsidy was 2.5 times the ferry. So ferry's bouncing back, but we had some costs that popped up. But it's also important to note we're not offering as many trips. We don't have as many customers. So the costs, that fare box recovery is not going to bounce back until we have, more people on the boats on Mondays and Fridays, or you make a decision to offer less service on Mondays and Fridays.
Thank you.
Holly, did I see your hand?
No, but thank you.
All right. Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from directors? Seeing none, that concludes discussion on this item. Madam Secretary, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on item 5?
We have no speakers on this item.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. No action is required on this informational report. We will move on to item 6 for a monthly report on activities relative to Marin Transit. Dennis, you would have anything to report?
All is good. All is good with Marin Transit in the interest of time.
Comments? Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from item 6? No. That concludes discussion on this item, and there is no action required for item 6. Madam Secretary, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on item 6 or address this committee on item 7, which is public comment?
We have no other speakers for this committee.
Thank you. Thank you. We have reached the end of the agenda. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved. Second.
Who is the second? All right. Hearing no objections, this concludes the meeting of the Transportation Committee. Thank you, colleagues. The time is 9:54.